What are you putting that on TV? Handing them checks?
I don't know if I'm gonna like this new setup. I don't know what
All
that's
set?
for.
Okay. Okay, can we call the meeting to order, please? And please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on the agenda is public announcements, and we'd like to thank Sione Garden Center for donating labor and plants to mulch the area around the flagpole and for the plantings in the two front planters at Town Hall. And I think they've done that for quite a while now,
They
right?
have,
Dave?
yeah.
So
Really nice job.
they look good. Under public appointments at 6:30 PM, update on compost site, Groveland Street, Susan Brennan, Selectman Liaison, Stephen Wright, and Kleinfelder, from Kleinfelder, I guess is, right? So can you guys come up and...
This table is correct to run on that?
I believe so.
Just to give you a quick update, I think the last time Steve and myself came to give you an update, it was last February. So we just figured we'd touch base, give you an update on the DEP findings. We've completed some monitoring updates and moving into fiscal 2013, 2014. So, and Stephen has a presentation, so hopefully we can get it to Laura. Do you have any handouts, Stephen? This is, if we need more. Does anybody-
We can share.
That's what I was hoping you'd say.
Do you need one yourself?
Yeah. Thank you, thank you.
You have to share.
We'll share.
You want to share?
Yeah, I'll share.
What's that?
Coming up.
It's nice, looks really nice.
No classified.
And it looks like a lunar landing.
Some of the new additions, if you look halfway through your packets, you'll find the delineation on the Newcomb property. And that was actually officially delineated, and now the selectmen are the proud owners of that. Ooh, hello.
Files.
That's all right.
And
It's on here. 'Cause I see it right here. This new setup, you guys are probably actually gonna hear what we say now. Could be in trouble.
it's really nice, though. Very nice.
You guys are christening it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As Sue said, it's been, I guess since the middle of February since we were last here, and we had just completed the first round of 4 rounds of monitoring at the landfill. So now we're at that point where we've got 3 rounds done, actually 3 rounds of groundwater done, 4 rounds of the soil gas. So we only have 1 more round of groundwater to go, groundwater, surface water, sediment. And then we'll have all the data that we need in order to go forward with the report preparation phase. So this next slide has got a lot of information on it, and you have it in the handout, and it's probably better if I kind of go through it as quickly as possible in the interest of time, because I don't really know how much time I've got allotted for this anyway, 10 minutes at most, probably.
No.
So we did the first round of water quality in November. We did private well sampling. There's one well within 500 feet that's on Brockton Ave. And that sampling didn't show anything, which was good. We did another private well on the Newcomb property right next door, which doesn't even exist anymore, but that was fine as well. Sediment results, we took sediment samples at 2 locations, one upstream of the landfill and one immediately downstream of the landfill. The sediment results themselves, there were some metals in those sediments, but they themselves didn't cause any real concern to DEP other than they wanted us to expand the sediment monitoring program in the next round, round 2, to look at wetlands around the landfill, not the stream so much, but the wetland soils around the landfill, and see if there was any historic maybe sedimentation and impact from the slopes of the landfill into the abutting wetland. So we incorporated that into round 2. It was a modification of the original scope, as well as we had a problem with a couple of monitoring points, one in particular that we were trying to use a piezometer for groundwater collection at an upgradient location. It's south of Groveland Street. And it wasn't working, so we installed a new well, groundwater well on town land, almost right across from the entrance to the site. So round 2 has a monitoring network of 4 groundwater wells that are on each side of the landfill. Soil gas, we have perimeter gas wells on the corner of the site. You'll see it in a figure that I'll show you. It's aimed at monitoring for off-site gas migration towards homes that are on the southerly side and easterly side of Groveland, of the landfill site. And then we have 2 gas wells within the landfill, which were put there for the purposes of seeing whether there was anything generated within the landfill that might be something we have to deal with in the event you have a post-closure use. You want to do something at that site that emissions might be something that we want to look at. There's a well in the south part of the site where you do composting right now, and then there's a well in the far back, the more historic, probably municipal solid waste disposal area. So we have those 2 gas wells. So like I said, we did 4 rounds of monitoring from the gas well network. That's all done. And we haven't seen anything in gas. We have one well, the one in the landfill in the back. We do have gas. It's not a surprise because it's in the waste. There may be some modeling we might have to do for the purposes of determining what an appropriate vent height might be. Nothing dramatic. No perimeter gases have been detected, no off-site gas migration, so that's good. So landfill gas is not much of an issue. And really, the back part of the site is only something to consider if there is going to be a post-closure use in the back part of the site. If there isn't, there's not a lot to look at with respect to the gas there. Groundwater quality, again, now we did a round in November, and then we did a round in April. We supplemented the November groundwater round in January with so it was the private well sampling. And then we had an April round, which was round 2. And then we had a round that we just completed at the end of June. And then the final round is the September-October timeframe. Now, the round 2 data, it reflects feedback that we got from DEP on round 1. So it's the additional sediment sampling. And in the wetlands, we did find, again, we found metals in the wetlands. And it was cadmium, zinc, mercury, and lead were the metals that exceeded what are called the probable effect concentrations, which is an ecological risk. It's not a human risk type of standard. And that result is something right now that hasn't been resolved with DEP in terms of whether they, I'm sorry, John, you want? I'm sorry. Hasn't been resolved with DEP in terms of their interpretation of it. There may be additional monitoring we have to do in the wetlands to determine whether there is an ecological risk. And that has its own regulatory process. They have what's called stage 1, stage 2. The person I need to talk to at the state has been out for a couple of weeks now, and I've been waiting to get feedback on this, and probably won't have it until early to mid-September. And what it's going to tell us is what we need to do for the final round, the fourth round. And to the extent that we can accommodate any expansion of the scope within our existing budget, we'll do that. But if we can't, it's something that we're going to have to, well, I think we should plan for between now and the end of the fiscal year. Be prepared to deal with if we're required to do anything more there. So that's the summary, I guess, of the groundwater and the soil gas and the sediment. The only thing that I see right now that's maybe something to deal with is the sediment in the wetlands. The groundwater has really showed very little impact. Gas, I already mentioned that as well. So the site is not imparting much of an impact, which is good news. Now, in terms of the site itself, and this is just a summary of the gas results, which I've already talked to you about. So here's the site, and the things that are highlighted in pink, those are sediment monitoring locations that we have. I didn't highlight the two in the stream, but you'll see a red spot down at the, I guess I can hit this here, maybe to make it a little easier. So this area down in here, I don't know if that's going to highlight, see what I highlight there. That was one of the initial sediment sampling locations, and here's the other spot right outside of on the other side of a culvert that runs through the landfill. Those two spots are the ones I don't think we're going to really have to monitor that much from anymore, but they were the ones that triggered this additional sediment sampling around the landfill, which is shown in pink. And I have concentrations in there, and you might be able to read them from your handout, but how the mercury and the lead and the zinc and the cadmium, exceedances to varying degrees, slight in some cases. The mercury was more or less slight. But again, that's what we have to find out where we're heading with that. What's highlighted in more of the orangish color there is the monitoring well network. So you'll see one south of the landfill, then up in that gray shaded area that's on the left-hand side. That's actually bounded by the property that the town acquired or got through gift as part of the Newcomb sale to Cape Cod Lumber. And so that area is about 5 acres in size. And the landfill within it, which is I don't know if you can see the heavy dashed line, but there's a heavy outline, that's the landfill. That's about 3 acres. So you got 5 acres, it encompasses the landfill area of about 3 acres. There's another shaded area off on the right-hand side. This is what was the Bob Loria property over here that was acquired by the town. So that's the network. I got the gas wells. Here's the gas well I was talking to you about that had the hit in the back part of the site, and then there's the other gas wells right over in here. So I'll stop there, I guess, just hit you with a fusillade of words. If there's any questions or any...
Tom?
Steve, I just had a question. You said that, I'm going to put it in my terms, there might be an additional budget request or additional funding that's needed. Was that for round 4 here?
Not necessarily. I see round 4 as we're within budget. We've expanded in response to DEP requirements. We've done more than what we had scoped, but we had set aside in our budget to deal with it.
Yeah.
If they ask for more sediment sampling in addition to what we've done so far.
They being the DEP? Okay.
The question is going to be, can we accommodate that as part of our typical groundwater, surface water monitoring that we have for round 4? And if we can't, is it something that we should do as a post-CSA activity? Do we just prepare the report, submit it, recognizing that there may be a post-assessment activity? It's not unusual to have that be the case on these assessments, that the DEP asks you to do more based upon what you find. If we can incorporate it all as part of the CSA before the report's submitted, that's great. And that's usually the result of coordinating with the DEP as you go along. And that's what we've tried to do here. If we can't, whether for funding reasons, I think the DEP would work with us on that. It's just that I'm not going to be able to be as definitive in when we complete the CSA report if I know that there's this hanging piece of assessment activity that they want to do. I don't know ultimately if they're going to require it. And if they do, I don't know how involved it may be. Ecological risk assessments can be a little involved depending upon what's required.
Right.
So I got to get that feedback. I wish I had it for you tonight to be able to tell you whether it's there or not. I've put a set aside. We had a set aside, when we met back in February, I gave sort of an outlay of fiscal year funding estimates, I guess, for planning purposes. And I've provided it again tonight, but I've modified it a little bit. I'm pushing the schedule a little bit to account for this coordination with DEP, where the report prep for the CSA is going to span, I'm thinking, from, I guess, the November to February timeframe. By the time we get comments back from them, the next phase in the process is the alternatives analysis. Look at different things you want to do at the site based upon what you found environmentally and how to address it. That was originally, that CAAA phase, corrective action alternatives analysis phase, was something I thought was going to be an FY13 activity. And so when I met with the board in February, I had it in as an FY13 funding activity. It's not going to be till FY14. Just that 2-month difference that I'm thinking our schedule might shift a little because of some of these coordination activities pushes that work into the next fiscal year. What I've kept, though, is a set aside for FY13 for compliance monitoring. It's something that's required that the town do. I guess in default, I could tell you that it's 30 years. Post-closure, you're supposed to do monitoring at the landfill for 30 years. And that begins from the time you're under like assessment activities. Once you finish your involved assessment activities like this, you're supposed to be prepared to continue to maintain surveillance and continue monitoring. So I have a set aside for that in there.
The second and last question is, in that buffer zone, which abuts the old Newcomb land.
In the gray?
In the gray. I know that when you get into the, I guess, alternative analysis, would that land be, let me use the word, fair game for one of the several options that were discussed before, ranging from do minimal, cap it, to compressing it and putting solar on there, I guess was the highest dollar amount.
There is, if you can see, I'll try to highlight this here to give you a boundary. I don't know if this is showing up because that's gray. There's our landfill edge, right? If you can see that. Yeah, I guess you can see that. And this area out here is a little sketchy. We think there's waste. That's all wetland in that area down here, in this area here, if that's showing up well. You can't really fill on that. That's going to be an issue of how to resolve that area down in there. But this area in here is uplands. And there's a knob of virgin ground here. Now, if you were to cut this, if you was part of post-closure, if you were going to try to incorporate that mound, you could do that and take this area as well and add it to a post-closure area. In answer to your question, the alternatives analysis certainly could look at, and the thoughts were, and I have it in here, I'll scroll off of this. I can go through that schedule in a minute. Let me just go to this is the CAAA. So actually, I have the schedule for the CAAA July to October 2013. So that's why I'm calling this as a FY14 activity. The alternatives could look at a no action, so you don't do anything out there, except for what I know the town does want to do, which is in the front part of the site, provide for composting activities. Some of my discussions with the DEP to this point, and it's really prior to this second round of sediment data, has been perhaps, if the groundwater data, if the data continues to show like it has for round 1, the town may be able to advocate a no-action alternative out there if it has no interest in doing anything out there. So if you didn't want to do anything, you didn't want to do composting, you didn't want to do anything in the back part of the site, if the environmental data is non-impactive, let's say, so little impact, the state may entertain a no-action alternative. Now, they provide for that in the regulations, but very rarely do they allow it. And in conversations I had with DEP, they were sounding like, after round 1, it might be something that the town could advocate. However, if you intended to do a post-closure use, you'd have to do something. You'd have to do some type of capping activity out there. So if you're going to put the composting operations in the front part of the site, if you're going to have some invasive activity or some development activity there, at least to the front part of the site, you'd have to do some type of capping. If you had no intention to do anything in the back part of the site, you might be able to leave the back part alone based upon the data. If you wanted to put solar there, you'd have to look at securing that back portion of the site. If you didn't and you wanted to look at solar in the future, and you left and say they accepted the no action in the back, you would have to go through a capping activity in order to get that solar program on the ground, up and running. So the good news out of this is that there may be the potential to advocate a no action alternative for the town. I don't want to get you too enthusiastic in that direction until we get a little bit more dialogue going based upon this sediment data. But in answer to also some considerations, because the other part of this alternatives analysis, we had talked about going back to 2007, 2008, to defray cost of closure, importing soils, impacted soils, to defray cost of closure. And the alternative that was adopted at the time was what would get us the most revenue. Solar wasn't on the, wasn't really envisioned at that time. And there was about 150,000 yards of material we estimated you could import on the back part of the site. So it's kind of the gray area, everything where the stream cuts through, north of that you could bring in 150,000 yards of material, but it would be a hill. You couldn't do anything with it when you were done with it, but it would bring in the most revenue off of that type of material because you'd be maxing it out. When we met with you back in February, and solar has become more of a attractive alternative, and it's being implemented at landfills. There was another option that we looked at back in 2008, which you would import less material and not max it out and give you some post-closure opportunity. And that was 85,000 yards of material. You could bring in the back part of the site, 85,000 yards of material, so about half of the max out, and you could get, when you were done, about a plateau of 3.5 acres, which at the time we were thinking that's enough for like a soccer field if that's what you wanted. 3.5 acres is probably a little less than a megawatt of power. And off that, where Sue, there were the preliminary discussions that we had, and that didn't seem entirely attractive, that amount. If you brought nothing in the back part of the site, and it's part of the handout, and you just capped with no importing of material, you'd have about 4.5 acres. So you might be able to hit a little over a megawatt. And I think, Sue, they were saying they'd like to have about 6 acres. I think
It's optimal. That would be optimal to come in at a turnkey operation.
So these are things that we've looked at enough to sort of put them in front of the selectmen, put them in front of the town, account for them, know the numbers. I mean, I know what the numbers would be for planning purposes, but the alternatives analysis would be the opportunity to kind of find out what do you really want to pursue out of this list that I've put here. These are examples of what I'm thinking we would look at in an alternatives analysis. And I wanted to give you an idea of what does that mean? What are some things we look at? Because you look at them financially. What are the cost benefits? Are they protective? What kind of specific details for closure would you need under each one? So, my feeling about the importing of fill or anything that you might want to do is best to wait until the CAAA is done. You've had a chance to look at the alternative or be involved in defining the alternatives, and then working through what does appear to be the best alternative and adopt one, and then it's like now you know what you want to implement.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Sue, did you have anything else to add?
Time has been on our side on this, evidently. The two things that are time essential for this project would be, one, to put on the town fall warrant, accepting the land as the gift. I'm sure that's a part of your protocol to accept it as the gift. So that's one that needs to go on the fall. It would be great if we could get it on the fall town warrant. And two, to put in a monetary line item to move forward.
So this is just another part of it's about the abutting property, which Sue just mentioned. And I had some information from Sean Riley documenting the acreages that were gifted over. There was some question about whether the deed language was acceptable to town council. And so I just wanted to highlight them here to serve as a reminder so that you may need to put it on town meeting to accept the gift, and has it been recorded? And probably not recorded at the Registry of Deeds yet until this activity is completed with town meeting. And then the other item here, which is very, I apologize, very difficult to read. This is just a schedule, and it's not very different. It's different by 2 months, probably. But just showing that everything closes out in October 2015. All closeout documentation. Construction happens late 2014. And assessment activities are happening in 2013, part of 2014. Now, here's the funding, and this is different. Most of it's the same, but it's some dollars have shifted into future years, but the 2015 is still the final year. And in here I have 2013 with a question mark, would this be fall, not to be too presumptuous, 2012 town meeting. $51,000. Now, that is really just the roll-up of some soil gas monitoring and groundwater monitoring that's compliance-based that we gave you budget set-asides for that would allow us to continue that type of monitoring. Personally, I'd rather put it to more use if needed in the short term for additional wetlands activities, if needed. If DEP comes back and says, no, we're done, you don't need to do any more, you'd still be in a post-closure compliance mode where you'd have to do some of those monitoring activities. So this set-aside would deal with that if you needed to do it. So I see it as it's not so much of a contingency, but I think it's the type of dollars that would be wise to have available to get you through the remainder of this fiscal year.
When would it be a good time for you to come back to give us another report?
It might be sort of, it might be, I could say the wrap-up of the CSA, but I'm looking at sort of like the first of the year for that. Unless there was reason to come in sooner, if something came out of discussions with DEP that suggested we need to do more, or maybe we don't need to do any more. And I don't know how extensive a report like that would have to be. I might be able to do that through John and not necessarily have to show up for something like that.
But maybe at least in January you'll come back and...
January,
Perfect.
February, yeah, I would say.
Perfect, perfect.
All right, great.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
John?
A couple of comments. One is that tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget balance, where we are with revenues that was requested for tonight. But we're also carrying approximately $115,000 in the Board of Health budget for the capping of the landfill. That money has been carried over. I don't know how much of it is used. This is the first I'm hearing about $51,000 that would be needed for FY 13. Would have been nice to know that obviously sooner so we could potentially have budgeted for it. But I guess at this point of the 115 that's left, maybe there's enough in there to take care of some of the monitoring aspects that need to be taken care of. But I wasn't aware of the 51,000 number until tonight. Let me see what we have. I think it's 115,335, which is the balance. It's in the waste collection number that would be carried forward. You'll get this information tonight.
Got it, John?
Yep.
Next, under public appointments, at 6:45 PM, we have a complaint of excessive noise at Sticks and Stones Restaurant, 800 Brockton Avenue. Was it the complainant, was it one complainant, or Dory?
There was one complainant with other neighbors' complaints, so I think I see more than one in the, it was the same complaint signed by several neighbors.
Okay. Is there a spokesman for the neighborhood?
Yes.
There's none here.
Mr. McCormick?
It's not, I don't think, is this a public hearing, or is it, we didn't post it as far as...
No,
Just
just notification
notification.
to the restaurant and the abutter.
Okay. So who's wanted to speak on behalf of the neighborhood? Is there somebody here to speak on behalf of the neighborhood, or? If you want to, that's up to you, if you want to.
I really don't have a whole lot to say other than noise disturbance.
Okay. Well, if you do want to present anything, if you'd come up here so people could be. All right.
Okay.
That's fine. If that's all, that's okay. And how about anybody here from Sticks and Stones, or? Can you just identify yourself, please?
Dan Milligan,
Roy Williams.
And what's your?
Owners.
connection?
Owners.
Both owners, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to refer to the police reports first, because this is what we have for tonight.
Okay, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I know there were a number of police reports with complaints.
Yes.
On each one. and-
Mhm. You want to refer to dates and things like that? I don't know if you guys have the same thing I have. I'm not sure.
They do.
We do?
As I went over this, probably in the last couple of days, as of the police reports when they arrived, the officers, I see nothing in here to correspond with noise disturbance with the callers. A couple of times that was stated by the officers that they went over to see one of the complainants. It says, excuse me. Right here. That one of the residents that was called, that they actually went to that residence, it was a Joseph Green. And it said in the report that, that these people never called at all. They weren't even part of this. They didn't know what Sticks and Stones was, the wife nor the husband. That was one that I noted in here, just being, just not finding any disturbance at all. And then another complaint from a Sylvia Joyce, they say here, was at the same residence as the same complainant. That was on 5/17. And we can go on to the other ones where where the officer sat outside the residence and didn't hear a thing, walked inside the kitchen of the complainant's residence and didn't hear anything in the kitchen. And then went further, closer to our business and didn't hear anything. And then went to the business, and we had a jukebox on, but could not hear from even outside, only inside. Talked to the manager, patrons, and a couple of the employees. Other side, if you just go over where the officer's notes, they sat outside, went inside, and one time when the officer came to the business, we're actually closed when the complainant came in. If you skim over that, you can probably see some of the officer's notes. As I went over all this, there's probably 34 pages of this. There was nothing in here that confirmed when the officers came to Sticks and Stones that there was any confirmation of any loud
Excessive
music,
noise.
anything. And then some of them, if you read the entire, which was I don't know if you want me to, it's a couple of pages, but basically, what is his name? I don't know the officer's name by last name, but cruiser numbers.
Mike Carini.
Mike Carini, he has almost a two-page report on different things that was outlined. One of them was, the place was closed, and some of the let's see, he noted on 5/17/12, 1,600 hours shift, 800 Brockton Ave. Talked to Sylvia Joyce at 24 Green Street, and they went there and couldn't hear anything. They reported that the music was too loud. And I know I'm all over the place, but, and then I talked to a Joseph Green, and was sent the location and didn't find any music when I went to Joseph Green's. I don't know who these individuals are.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do you have an entertainment license? Or
Yes.
You do. So do you have bands there?
Yes.
You do?
Saturday nights.
Saturday
when we
nights.
have
Is that
bands.
the only night you have bands there?
Yes. And now they're basically sporadic. It's once, maybe twice a month, because we're kind of changing music around. And if you note in the report, as you can scan over that, I believe it's Mr. McCormick's house that one of the officers noted that it was a quarter mile away from Sticks and Stones, and that said that the complaint was the music was bouncing off Walmart and then getting over in Mr. McCormick's neighborhood. And then the other complaint that was stated, that was from Mr. McCormick, that this other complaint was even further away from Mr. McCormick's house and from our business at the same time.
I think that was the Mr. Green, actually, that,
I'm not really sure what, it just says in this report, so I'm not gonna, try and say who that was. But then, the officer actually, when the complaint came in, the officer went to Mr. McCormick's house at the time of the complaint came in, and in the report says, in his kitchen, standing in the residence, and didn't hear anything, nothing at all. And when the report came, it didn't come to Sticks and Stones first.
and how about nights other than Saturday? You have a jukebox, is that all you
A
have?
jukebox, yes, yep.
And there was one incident in here where the back door was open, is that something that's common? or
Well,
is
it
that-
had happened that the complaint came in, and for the only reason to, to make it, right, we closed the door. They were actually cleaning, the kitchen and stuff, and had the door open, so
Pulling
that,
the mats out of the kitchen, hosing them off, so.
Was that during the time when a band was there? or-
yes, yes. And then for that reason, they don't take them out back until, after midnight, because that's when, music stops. So if there's no music at all, it's basically an emergency exit now. They don't go out the kitchen door and do that outside anymore. So if you have any other questions, I mean, it's pretty much spelled out in the police reports when they came in. I don't know how many incidents that, because some of them are duplicates, and if you look at them, that how many there, but there's nothing to confirm any of this at all.
Except for the back door incident.
And that was because, that's what I would feel like that would be something, but other than that.
Anybody have any questions? John, do you have anything to add, or?
I've gone down to speak to the owners in regards to Mr. McCormick's complaint, and I can tell you that this has been ongoing for a while between both parties, and I've talked to Mr. McCormick on a number of occasions, and I can tell that he's frustrated over what's going on. And I think that the other issue is that if the band is playing and the back door is open, it obviously shouldn't be, and I think that the restaurant has addressed that issue. I'm not quite sure. I've asked them to look at sound attenuation paneling on the inside to keep the noise from going outside of the building. None of the reports from the independent parties, such as the police department, has actually indicated that there was any noise outside of the building at all. When I spoke to the owner, they had indicated that they would make an effort to put some of that sound attenuation paneling up to try to alleviate the concerns of the neighborhood, and I don't know how far along they've gotten with that.
Well, the company that I addressed, Pro Sound in Weymouth, actually, I've talked to them 4 different times. I don't understand why nobody has actually come out to do the job, or even to do they're gonna do an evaluation with the sound, as far as decibels and stuff are concerned.
Is that the only company that does that sort of thing, or is there somebody else?
It's not the owner, it's one of his technicians.
No, but I mean, is there another company you could contact if they're not getting
Then
back to
the
you?
next company that does it is in Needham. I have not called them yet. What's that?
How long has it been?
Also the chair.
Since we talked to Pro Sound.
About 2 weeks. Since I talked to Pro Sound.
When did John notify you?
Sir, if you have to address the questions through me if you want to ask a question to the, okay? What's the question you have, sir?
When did you say you were gonna put the sound barriers up?
When would the
Well,
sound barriers?
originally, when I talked to Pro Sound, it wasn't actually, they were gonna come out and do an evaluation to see if it was necessary to go take it to that next level.
When was that?
Originally, probably 3 months ago.
What's the date?
Well, I think he said he's tried on 4 different occasions to do that, but I understand.
It shows.
I can also say one thing as I cut in. In one of the reports, in some of this, and to skim over, it says that Ms. McCormick stated that it was actually going through the roof out the attic. So if we were to put sound barriers on the inside, I mean, if you absorb the sound, if it would go straight up and through the attic, considering if it's a concrete floor, and if you know sound, if you hit something that's hard, it goes up. So if it's going out through the attic, that means the whole attic. I'm not a sound professional dampening guy, but if it's going through the attic is, I couldn't even tell you. I mean, the whole building is 5,800 square feet, so being the attic, the floor, that would be a whole different animal. I mean, it was stated by, I don't know how somebody would know that, but I'm not.
But
sure.
also, we can't hear the music 25 feet away from the building.
Yep, Mike?
You stated that you have a band in there. Is that strictly on Saturday nights?
Yes.
Yes.
And a number of these complaints come through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes.
Yes, and there's
No entertainment Monday, Tuesday,
So
Wednesday.
would that be the jukebox?
yes.
Well, the jukebox there, but I can tell you that it doesn't have that kind of wattage to do that.
That would be my question.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
If I were to
Yes.
show up or something,
Right.
out to the- but
Yes.
you could turn that up and I could go outside your building
Yes.
and
And
observe that?
absolutely.
But you are okay with trying to do something as far as sound mitigation?
I'll have a, I mean, I have no problem paying a company to come out and do an evaluation, and if it is excessive, then we'll
You'll get a
go from there
report. We'll
without a
definitely
doubt.
submit a report to you.
They actually, the way it was explained to me is, ProSound will actually contact either John or Dory, have them come out when they do the evaluation, or somebody from the town. So it's not just a, this is what.
There's
it
an
was-
independent observer
Correct.
there also. Yes.
Correct, so.
Spend the
But,
night there some night, John. That'd be-
But most of the complaints on a Monday, Tuesday, I mean, when the officers come in, they laugh because there's 3 people at the bar and the jukebox
Is off.
You and I can have a
you-
conversation this far away and hear each other absolutely perfect. So, I mean, the excessive noise, I don't know. He was also telling my landlord that we have fights in the parking lot all the time. There's loud motorcycles out there peeling out and.
That's not the case, you're saying that's not the case?
Correct.
Could I
Yes, sir.
say something on that? It is the case, because I've spoken to everybody up in the neighborhood. It is the case.
The case is what, that there's loud motorcycles and,
Loud motorcycles, these people are neighbors too, all right? This is what happens with the noise. I'm gonna tell you one thing. It was Memorial Day, it was a party up in the neighborhood. That's when I called, and I heard music, and I thought it was the same old story, sticks and stones. They were brothers. Car came down, and I said, oh, okay, it must be over here in the neighborhood. I'm sorry. Okay? Sticks and stones, the music bouncing through the attics, coming through our houses, and it's disturbing us. No more. No more.
well, again, they've agreed to try to get somebody out there to
Last call.
monitor the sound and take a look and see what's gonna happen. So if you could do that in the next few weeks, that would be, I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
And then you can yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I think they ought to take the microphone.
Yeah, I know. Can you come up front so people can hear? If you need to, if you want to address the board, you need to come up and speak and identify yourself, if you would, please. Thank you. Just give us your name and your address,
Hi,
please.
I'm Pat O'Keefe for 56 Green Street. Now, I'm abutting the Sticks and Stones, and our bedrooms are on that back side where all the music is. And when Sticks and Stones closes, all I hear is people out back. So I don't know who it is, whether it's the staff out there, or whether it's people that have been drinking.
It's probably the paper.
But I hear that. That's what bothers me.
Okay.
Just,
You hear that every night?
No.
No, just-
Almost every night. The weekends, it's the weekends. But I'm thinking people are complaining on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, they're complaining because it was the weekend that they heard all the noise. Not Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and so on.
Okay. Mike,
So-
did you have a question?
When you say out back, ma'am, you mean to the rear of the building, the kitchen
Yes.
area, I assume? Okay.
Yes, I'm Jackie O'Keefe, same address. It's like, there's the building, then there's almost like a street behind it, like, well, not a street, but a road.
A road, yeah.
And this one time, I actually made a call on this, I don't know whether it showed up in the police report or anything, but not about the noise from music, but there were people out back, like, not fighting or anything, but just banging things, I don't know what it was. They're just talking really loudly and making all kinds of excessive noise. And again, I don't know whether it was staff or what the issue was.
Was that on more than one instance or just one instance?
That particular thing was one instance, but definitely the motorcycles. My bedroom is right there behind the restaurant. And it's like on a nice day, I can't even open my bedroom window sometimes because of, it's usually on the Saturday nights.
You know what, I live on Washington Street, and I can tell you motorcycles are a real problem, because I can hear
Yeah.
those things, and it seems like when they go in front of my house, I rev it up.
Yeah.
Just to let me know they don't have a muffler on, so.
It's like that,
But I mean, that's a different issue, that's.
one of the neighbors,
Hold on, sir. Are you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
one of the neighbors early in the morning.
Just identify yourself, sir.
Rich McCormick.
And your address?
I'm sorry?
Address, please?
124 Green Street.
Thanks.
Well, one of the neighbors, when they walk their dog out there in the morning, they walk by there, and they see things like pocketbooks torn open the next morning, needles, puke all over the parking lot, things like that. It's unhealthy. It's not safe. Things like that, stuff like that. So I just think it's a problem. The place is a problem, believe it or not. Yeah. It wasn't like that before they moved in, but now it's changed. It's a whole different thing. So, and I'm not the only one that called. So, other neighbors told me they've called the police. So, I don't know what reports, but they've told me.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Maybe one last opportunity, guys.
Sir, I had one more thing. The noise bounces through the attics of the homes. It carries down the walls. They're not insulated. And it's like a boom, boom, boom inside the home. And it's a disturbance.
Okay, thank you.
I'd actually like to say that we're actually pretty proud of what we've done over there as far as cleaning up the place.
Sir, come on. You had your opportunity. It's their chance to speak.
We don't allow riffraff in there. The MC clubs, all of that stuff, keep it down to a minimum, without a doubt. As far as drugs, any of that stuff, I've never been drunk a day in my life, so not really big into that stuff whatsoever. So as far as pocketbooks being torn open, never seen one. Needles, no.
Absolutely not.
So I don't know where that's coming from, but I guess it's just reaching out.
If you guys probably know the police reports from, prior businesses being there was probably more police calls, rather than disturbing the pieces, but there was probably more police calls for other things rather than, it can be a numerous of things. And I can tell you that since we've been there's been a couple of instances, but they were extremely minor. And that being from the majority of before to being now, I think, like he said, we think we did a pretty good job of what we have done there and cleaning it up and making it what it was supposed to, because it's an establishment that is basically respectable now, rather than people saying, oh, that place is a dump. I don't know if any of the board members have been in there, or, I think they have been there. It's not what it used to be. And to actually say the place in needles and torn open and it's violent, basically, is false. And I can tell you that standing here today. Absolutely not. If the biggest complaint is music, we will do something to fix that, and we will submit something. But if that's our biggest complaint, it will be taken care of.
Okay.
And that's all I can say.
I guess if they could work with you, John, as far as getting the evaluation done.
They have, and we can continue to work, towards that end, but, it has been a while since we've talked about the sound attenuation or trying to get some sort of buffer between the residential neighborhood, the Green Street residents, and the business, particularly on, when they have live entertainment, it's probably more pronounced than when they don't. And sound carries depending upon the cloud coverage and the wind direction and a whole bunch of other. I've dealt with sound issues when I was in Mansfield at the Tweeter Center, and you're talking about huge rock bands and neighborhoods being impacted. So it's nothing you can really put your finger on, but in this case, it's you have an isolated business and you have a residential neighborhood, and they have to coexist peacefully, and that's not happening now, and hopefully we can get it done in the next couple of weeks.
Just one more thing, if you could also address the problem of the back door being open after closing or whatever, like, and the
Yeah,
staff,
but-
probably the staff. or something
After
like that.
closing, nobody's out back.
But those two women had that argument that there were people out in the back of the establishment.
Occasionally, there are,
That's fine.
but it's not employees, it's not customers. There is some teenage kids once in a while that are out back there, but,
If they're talking like the side way down by where the laundromat is, that area, where all the parking is, we we get everybody out of the building, and then we have somebody outside making sure that, everybody, on the busier nights, but, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're pretty light on those nights anyway. And for, as controlling people and alcohol out on the parking lot that, were being a disturbance, I mean, we keep that to a minimum, and if there is something. But this is the first I heard about anything in the parking lot. I don't even know what time it was, you know what I mean? So, yeah, she didn't mention that there was a time. 1 a.m. is when we close.
Okay.
So if it was past 1 a.m., absolutely, if there was something going on in the parking lot, it would be absolutely net.
That's fine.
John?
Do you think it would be possible, as you get close to closing time, that one of you or some of your staff people would remind the patrons that are leaving that they shouldn't congregate, there's a neighborhood in the back, they should get in their vehicles, put mufflers on their motorcycles, or buy non-Harleys or whatever, and leave the area
Yes,
as quickly as possible?
well,
Because I think
this-
that would be helpful.
That this is the first time we've heard about the whole noise parking lot congregation thing, so obviously we will address it. If we didn't know about it before, if there wasn't a problem we didn't know about, we can't address something we didn't know. As you see, we had no idea about people.
but also the motorcycles, it is Route 123, and
Right.
motorcycles
It's
drive by
understandable,
there at
yes.
all hours of the day and night, and not necessarily means they're coming from Sticks and Stones.
But I think
So-
John's suggestion is a good one as far as reminding your patrons, please, leave
Be
the area,
respectful
don't
and-
congregate.
Yes,
Yeah, and then it-
absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, when did you folks open?
July 11th, 2011.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
11/11/11.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Pretty good.
No, 7/11/11.
7/11.
Oh, July, I'm sorry, I thought you said November.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Should have waited till 11/11/11, we would have had a better shot.
Okay, under action discussion items, item number 1, approval of minutes.
Move we approve the minutes of August 6th, both open and executive sessions.
Second. Weren't you in the executive session?
One of them,
There's one that you weren't there on, Kevin.
but they're all one.
Okay, we have motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the executive session not to be released until all matters are resolved. Item number 2, accept letter of resignation from Tricentennial Committee.
May I make a suggestion on the executive session for a
Yes.
second? There is part of the executive session that deals with matters that cannot be released, but there is the second section that has been concluded. We can redact the first part and release the second part if you wanted to
Okay.
do that.
Yeah. Item number 2, accept letter of resignation from Tricentennial Committee, Douglas Ulwick.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I might, this is kind of a unique situation, having worked with Mr. Alwick in the past, and the Tricentennial Committee certainly has done the lion's share of the work, and it's fast approaching the time where it's going to be completed. And Mr. Alwick, not on just the project, but on that, is given of his time and talents to this town on a number of occasions. And for that reason, I would like to make a motion that we not accept his letter of resignation and have a letter sent from administration or the board, whatever, thanking him for his time and talents, not just on this project, but he's been involved on projects, the senior center and police station, and he's on the historical commission. And I think it would only be fair and right if we, again, not accept his letter of resignation and inform him of such and thank him for his efforts on behalf of the town.
How about if you ask him to reconsider?
We could do that.
I mean, they've only got one more event to go, so is that what you want to do?
Whatever you want, Mr.
That would make more
okay,
sense. I think that
that's
would make
fine,
sense.
that's
Be more
fine.
appropriate.
But, yeah,
Ask him, yeah, okay, I'll second that.
but then if you...
So the motion would be that we not accept his letter and we ask him to reconsider.
Right. Based on his
Resignation.
long service to the town.
How's that? Okay.
Fair enough?
That's good by us.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconds, any discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Item number 3, signature of approval for the 9th Annual Harbor to the Bay AIDS Benefit Bike Ride on September 15th, 2012, as amended. This was before us previously, correct?
That's correct, last month.
And now the language that Kevin suggested be stricken has been stricken, so.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I think the motion should read that the chairman would be authorized to sign on behalf of the board.
Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4, vote on special municipal employee status for the school building committee. I guess there is a request that the school building committee be designated as special municipal employees. Any discussion? Questions?
I thought members of the Board of Selectmen couldn't be special,
They can't.
so...
Members of the Board of Selectmen cannot be special municipal employees.
That is correct, but you would be considered ex
Ex
officio
officio
members by
members.
virtue of your,
So are there other people on there that would not be in the same, would
That's
be in the same
correct.
boat as members of the board?
I think, in speaking with council in regards to this particular matter, dealing with the number of individuals that may potentially pose some sort of a conflict, whether it be George Whiting or who do other business for the town, I think, according to Attorney Goldberg, she recommends that we vote special municipal exemption status for the school building committee for those members who are not ex officio.
Okay.
The state will allow ex officio membership without a conflict of any kind or violation of any a conflict of interest statute in the state law. However, with respect to the individuals outside of the ex officio capacity, it would be wise in this circumstance to have them exempt through the special municipal employee exemption status as a committee.
I'll make a motion to,
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 6, update on,
Mr. Chairman, just as a note, we are expecting, there was also the attachment of the letter that went out to 151 or more volunteers, or people who serve on, more than
Yes.
more than one board, and that's expected back no later than a month from the date of the letter. I've been hearing that some people are just not going to return it at all, and I urge people that if they have this letter, to read it through. If they have any questions, contact my office. I'll be happy to walk them through it, but we would like to hear from as many of the volunteer officials in the town as possible, so that we can make an accurate determination about the need for special municipal exemption status, either by committee or by individual.
Any questions on that particular item? All right, Item number 7, drafting.
Did you skip over number 5?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did, yeah. Signature of letter to the legislature regarding town meeting approved charter changes, and those letters are here tonight, so just ask
think they're all
everybody to sign
signed.
those. Okay, I think they're all signed, John, so. Item number 6, we just had. Item number 7, drafting and adopting municipal board committee handbook.
That looks pretty good. I had a chance to look at it a little bit. Do you want to put this on the next agenda? You're not going to deal with it tonight?
No, we don't want to deal with it tonight, just to let people know, Mike and I sat down and we're trying to develop a handbook for all the volunteers of appointed committees in the town, just so they know what their obligations are, what's expected of them. Kind of goes through the special municipal employee status, conflict of interest law, open meeting law, and that sort of thing. So we kind of cheated and took some things from different towns throughout the
Yeah, we did.
throughout the Commonwealth. We looked at about 6 or 7. One was Kingston, Harwich, Amherst, Chatham, I think was another one, so Sudbury. So sent that out to you folks, and then I gave you the hard copy tonight. So if we could maybe take a look at it, and we'll discuss it at our next regular meeting, not at our next meeting, but at our next regular meeting.
Which is what date?
Is that the
September 10th.
10th, right? September 10th, yeah. Tom?
I know we're not discussing it, but I do have a question
Yep.
on this, and going back to the special municipal employee status for the school building committee. I did go through it today, and I thought one of the key points in here is that you can't just select one member from a committee
Right.
to give special municipal employee status. So I guess my question is, in this letter going out to the 150 or 200 people, for example, let's say it's a school committee, and one of those people come back and they have some sort of financial interest in something before the town. Would that preclude us giving special municipal employee status to the entire school committee?
No.
So my question is, why are we asking 150 people for financial, or whether they think they might have financial interest, when even if they did, I guess it's either the whole committee that they serve on, or,
But I think when we first initially talked about sending that letter out, it was to review the whole special municipal employee status, whether or not we think certain committees should have it, certain committees shouldn't have it, and that was the first step in just looking at the whole issue.
but I think to John's point is, I've got calls from people that got the letter first, A, saying, what the hell is this letter about? And I try to explain it. And then I sit there and question that, even if they fill it out and give it back, it's, I don't think, really going to determine whether we give status to that person or not. We're looking at committees, it would seem to me. So I guess I'm confused why we're looking at individual people on committees.
I'll touch upon that too. Why don't we just make every elected and appointed board special? Because
Well, they are right now, basically.
every
They're all-
single.
Just about every.
Why don't we just keep
about-
it that way? Because I mean, if one person on the school committee wants to be on it and the other 4 don't, we're probably going to vote to make it because it's the
Well, again, I
board.
think that depends on whether or not you think a particular board should have special municipal employee status. There might be some boards that individuals here don't think should have special municipal employee status.
I agree with that, but it seems to me we should be looking at boards as opposed to individuals.
Well, I think we will, but again, I think this was the first step in doing that. And it was to get the ball rolling. I think that was basically what, Kevin actually was the one who made the motion back. And I think Mr. Riley got up and asked the same question as you, and we all agreed that this at least gets the ball rolling so we can take a look and review. And, John, yeah.
And I think the other, the rationale why we send out individual letters is because while you give the board as a whole special municipal exemption status, the board changes. and individuals come on and off the board on a regular, consistent basis. And if you don't know the composition of the board, there may be no reason to have the Historical Commission and its membership as a special municipal exemption board versus, because you want to look at the individuals to see the composition of the committee, if there are potential conflicts. In talking with people in my peers and also with the town council who represents a number of communities, there are a lot of communities that don't believe that special municipal employee exemption status should apply to anybody. And then there are those communities that do. And those communities that do look at community participation and say, well, should we hinder that? And then there are other communities that basically say, we want to stay as far away from that as possible. We do not want any potential conflicts at all. So there's that end of the spectrum that you have to balance in each of your decisions. And if you're going to lean towards a more participatory process with respect to boards and committees, realizing that certain members may represent other interests before other boards and committees, if the board as a whole feels comfortable about that and they vote so accordingly, then, it may be worth the exemption on the committee as a whole. With respect to town employees, we would want to use that from an administrative perspective as sparingly as possible, that from my perspective. But from the committee perspective, you may want to broaden that.
So if we vote to make don't give a board municipal, especially municipal, and then it changes every year during the elections, and one of those persons wants to be, so we have to revote every board every year?
You could if you wanted to.
Yeah. There are towns that do that. And going through some of these committee handbooks, there are towns that every year they review special municipal employee status and decide whether or not a particular board still needs to have it.
And it also may affect our decisions on appointments, because if we know that you use the historical commission, if we know the historical commission does not have special municipal status, then when we appoint, we might say, well, this person might get in trouble being on there, we better not appoint. I mean, that's just hypothetical, but I don't know. I just
But
don't know why we don't.
it would be to that particular individual, too. I mean, he would make the determination whether or not he wanted to apply to a board that didn't have special municipal employee status versus one that did, I guess. To me, it's something that needs to be reviewed. It hasn't been reviewed since, what, 2006, 6 or 7 was the last time it was voted on, and
It's very confusing. It is. It really is, And I don't blame these people. I've gotten the same amount of feedback that you have. People, why the hell did I get it? They don't even know what boards they're on, some of these people. They could be an obscure board that's on here, Municipal Scholarship and Education Committee. I don't even know what that is.
well, I guess it's a good reason to go through and see what committees are actually in existence and not in existence, too, so.
But I would say, on a review level, I thought this was excellent. I think the content was superb. For me, I would like to see it potentially, when we get to that point, maybe raised to more of like a PowerPoint level. And it's very dense now, but a lot of key points in there, and maybe raise it up that we could either put it on the website or frankly, go to these boards and spend the 5 or 10 minutes just going through what they need to know. But I do commend the board.
You good at PowerPoint, Tom?
I've been known to use a little bit.
We get to that level, maybe you can do.
Yeah, I'll be glad to help you out with it. But no, I thought it was very good.
So if we had some issues with it, we can just bring it to the next meeting. Okay.
Or do you want us to give you those before?
Regular meeting, next regular meeting, the
But do you
September
want us
10th
to
meeting.
give my comments before the regular meeting?
I think it would be good if we could encompass
It'd be good.
everything.
Yeah, so we don't
Instead of
spend a
getting,
lot of
no, I'm
time.
not going to use the word, but, taking back a little bit of trying to reinvent the wheel, because it is really basically just a guide, and we're trying to put together a guide to help,
And you know what,
people's
it's
coming.
mostly all the towns, they all use the same format, it's. All right. Item number 8, status of network administrator position. John?
Mr. Chairman, I think we're, until we can get some issues ironed out here, we do have a person that's going to start the position. I will resubmit the individual's name at a later date. we'll hire him temporarily at this point until we work out the issues that surround this position.
Are there issues that surround the position?
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. Have you made an offer of employment to this guy?
Yes, we have, but the.
Okay, well, I guess that's my point, is that I don't want to, if you've made an offer of employment, I guess my concern is that I don't want to see that belabored if this person, and if in fairness, you've made an offer of employment, and if this person has given their particular notice, I don't know that that's fair on our behalf. Is there issues? What are the issues?
The notification did not have contingent upon the Board of Selectmen's approval.
The notification to the individual?
Yes. We discussed it with them verbally. This is the second time that this has happened. It shouldn't have happened the second time. So we wanted to provide a more structured notification. And at the same time, I wanted to clear up some issues in relationship to questions that were posed about other hires in the town by a member of the board. And I think it's important that we understand the value and the reasons why we're appointing people to these positions and the reasons for that. And
Okay, I think if there's issues relating to policy going forward that emanated from this position, I think it becomes incumbent to get those ironed out moving forward. What I would not want to see is the person to whom you've made this offer. And, categorically, I like the fact that this person is from Abington. I like the fact that he's a veteran of the United States Navy. And I think if there are the questions in terms of procedure, I think it is incumbent to address those for the future. I don't think it behooves us to hold up somebody. If you feel as though this is the appointment you want, I think I'm ready to move forward to confirm it.
it is.
All right. Well, and if there are issues in terms of policy and procedure, the way it was conducted, I don't know what they are, but I guess what I would say is those are issues that need to be corrected for the future. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
I agree. I would agree with Kevin. And the other issue I have is, and I think I emailed you this, John. I'm not convinced that we even need to do this, only because the charter speaks to specific positions. This is not one of the positions that the selectmen have veto authority or over. And so if this is the person that the administration thinks is the right person, then I think you have the authority to hire that without our approval. That's,
Well,
the charter is very specific as to what positions need to have
right, and
our
I-
approval.
And I wasn't here when the charter was fashioned, and you folks were. So the question that I would pose is, was that requirement put in the charter to address department head positions, which are really important positions that impact the town as a whole, that the board wants to weigh in on? If that's the case, then whether the position, if that was the intent, then we should, whether it's listed or not listed, we should make that a common practice. And at the next charter review, put in some language that basically says, or other positions that are created by the administration, which would cover these types of issues. But it doesn't seem fair that we would require approval from some positions, but not all department head positions. And I know we don't with respect to the water department because they're a separate entity, or for that matter, the sewer department. But beyond that, I don't know what the intent of the charter was when it was fashioned that way.
Kevin?
Okay, all right, I think if the issue, again, becomes, I don't want this particular appointee to be held in, for lack of a better word, purgatory, because there are issues that perhaps should have been followed that maybe they weren't. But I think that becomes an issue of finitely putting down a policy and procedure as to how it will be handled in the future. I'm not quarreling with the fact that if there's a there should be a policy, quite honestly, in terms of how the appointees are presented to the Board of Selectmen and how they are notified, if that is your intent to hire them. And I think this particular appointment perhaps has, that issue has risen to the top as a result of it. The one thing I would not want to do is, an unintended consequence of all of this is this particular person gets caught in the middle, which I don't think is fair.
Right. I don't either. I wouldn't, he would start working. He is employed by the town and he's appointed. I guess the other question I have with respect to the charter is it says that these positions are appointed by the town manager. But in fact, they may not be appointed by the town manager if the board, if we can't hire the person until the board says yea or nay.
Well, I think the charter says, if I recall, that the selectmen have within 10 or 15 days.
15 days, I'm reading it right here, yes.
So it would seem to me that upon notification to the Board of Selectmen that you've made an offer of employment to individual X, your beginning date cannot start on or before 15 days after that period. Yeah. If the selectmen feel as though that you've put forward somebody that they, quite honestly, don't think is qualified, has issues with, they have 15 days in which to have a either special meeting or a regular meeting of the selectmen, bring it up, and make a determination as to what's going forward. I do think, however, that there should be some procedure set forth that we get notice of, the appointments. Now, granted, all that says is that if somebody is brought forward and they're vetoed, we cannot substitute our judgment for that of the appointing authority. What it would then say is that you have to submit another name, or the position doesn't get filled.
I do agree with that.
So from that standpoint, I do think, because, on some of the appointments that have been made, I personally haven't objected to any of the appointments you've done so far, but I do think there should be some level of standardization, if you will.
I agree.
From that standpoint, so.
We'll do that.
Well, again, I feel comfortable moving ahead.
Oh,
If you want to ratify it, I guess if we don't ratify it, it's going to become effective 15 days.
It'll become de facto 15 days thereafter.
After your
I would
appointment letter
prefer.
went out, so.
I prefer to take a vote on it.
Yeah,
Personally, because
I
I
do too, yeah.
enthusiastically support this candidate.
Yeah, and I think well, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we ratify the appointment of the town manager of Wayne Nolling Jr. of Richard Road in Abington to the position of network administrator.
I'll second.
Second, any discussion? Ken?
I'm kind of confused, because I'm not really sure what's going on here. We're appointing this guy to work, but then you said, is it because you haven't come to terms with?
No, we've come to terms with him.
I don't know why, I don't understand.
Well, I guess the bottom line is we're ratifying John's appointment at this point.
Yeah.
I wanted to initially hold it back. I understand that the board wants to move forward. I'm fine with moving forward.
But why did you want to hold it back?
Because I wanted to provide a better written notification to the board, which really wasn't done. But the person could start and work, and then we could ratify at the next
No problem.
meeting.
This was sent to us a while ago. We got a chance to look at it, and I think at one of the last meetings, it was down to 2 people, and so I have no problem with this, so.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 9, Town Manager Report.
I just have, I didn't have time to pick up my little fancy thing here that I was going to hook my computer up to, but I don't have it. I don't have the piece.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Is that it?
No, it won't
No.
work.
Oh.
I wanted to pass out an update on the financial revenues for the town. I think that there might be, how many are there?
6.
I just want to spend briefly some time on where we are at the close of FY '12 and the commencement of FY '13. I handed this information out, and we had approximately close to $500,000 operating surplus, which means that we had appropriated money that has not been spent in excess of approximately, I think it was between 3 and 4, maybe close to $500,000. At the time I met with the board in executive session, we talked a number of about 300,000 potentially in free cash. That number has shrunk to approximately $131,127. And it could go a little bit higher, and it could go a little bit less than that, depending upon what the state has for charges against the town. The first sheet that I'd like to look at is the expenditure sheet, which is the landscape version. We did not, the numbers that I was looking at when I had met with the board initially did not have all of the wire transfers and the unemployment, the Medicare numbers accurately portrayed. In addition to that, we customarily ask departments to provide us with whatever carryover monies they're carrying over from one fiscal year to the next. And there were a couple of departments that did not report on time their carryovers. We are carrying over $115,335. If you look at the first page at the department, and you look at waste collection, and you look across to carryover, you will see that we're carrying over $115,335. Above that, at the school level, we're carrying over $106,107. That's for the facade at the Frollo School. Those two numbers, in addition to the fact that we now have a better Medicare number, the individual working in the accountant's office did not did not account for any of the wire transfers that dated back to April. And so as a result of that, our numbers were off until we caught that error and updated those numbers. We first met with the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee had questioned some of the numbers. We went back and looked at those numbers and found that there were certain numbers that were not reported or not captured properly. That has since been corrected. These numbers are the latest numbers that we're looking at. We could have a free cash number as high as 200,000 and somewhere around 131,000. Any questions on the first sheet about the carryovers or anything like that?
John, just so I understand, I think I do, but town accountant, okay, the budget, we budgeted $238,728. And I think that was composed of two pieces. It was the initial budget, and then didn't we do a transfer at the annual or one of the special town meetings to cover the additional expenses that we incurred in that department?
That's correct.
We've spent, as you close the books on June 30th, $205,226. Okay. So I guess the question is, again, why wouldn't we let that fall to the bottom line in free cash? Why are we going to carry forward our $26,915, if I understand it?
Well, part of the appropriation was an article for vacation and personal use buyback of $26,915. That number is committed.
Oh, so
That was an article.
yeah, I thought that was covered in the special article. You're saying it
Well,
wasn't?
that is a special article. That number equates out to the amount of money that we owed him for.
I thought
50
when the special article, there was a money amount associated with that I was led to believe it covered the additional salary of the temporary person that was in there. It covered sick leave buyback, and it covered comp time.
There were two separate articles. If you look at the town accountant's, the original budget was $184,275. There was an additional appropriation of $54,454.
All right, I'm sorry, I see where you're going.
That number
Okay.
accounted for the interim town accountant that came in.
So the 26,915 is to pay those unfunded liabilities then for the
That's
town account.
correct, and that's what the
Okay.
carry forward represents in most of these cases here.
What was the information technology for 12.5? Did it cover the cost of maintenance or something for?
No, I think it had to do with the upgrade to the smartphone technology. There was an article to increase the IT number to, I believe it was to cover
The phone systems?
the smartphone technology system, I think.
Okay, and the last one for me is the trash, the waste collection.
Yes.
I guess we had a transfer of 173,143, which was for funds to cap the dump. Is that what that was for?
That's correct.
Okay, based on what we heard tonight, where they're projecting 51,000 for this year, why have we got up 115,000?
We had an original appropriation of $275,000 when I first came here. That number has been spent down to $115,335 in total. So there's money available. That's what I was saying earlier, that there might be some money available in the budget currently, because they're asking for 51,000 that I didn't know about until tonight. So I can't plan for what I don't know. And so as a result of that, there may be enough money here, but some of this money may be committed to landfill closure activities that I'm not aware of. Because this information doesn't necessarily flow directly to me. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And as a result of that, I don't have a clear understanding of how much financially we need to set aside. So if the 51,000 is a good number, and we're talking about that tonight, I don't know how much of the 115 is committed for purposes beyond the 51,000, if you understand what I'm saying. So we may have enough, we may not, and if we don't, we're gonna need to appropriate some money, possibly at the end of the fiscal year. Because they're not gonna do anything until FY14 anyway, so we're off about a year based on the timeline.
But we constantly get bills from them because, I mean, they're monitoring the situation, they came in and give their presentation, that's gonna cost us money.
Yes.
So-
Yeah, and so I don't know how much of the monitoring money will eat up the 115, and whether there's enough left for the 51 or not. If
But
not,
that's something you can find out. That's not,
oh yeah, that's something we'll need to button up as we get closer.
Because I guess to cut to the chase, I was sort of, not really led to believe, but the information we're working with was closer to 300,000 coming back this fall for free cash. And I guess I'm just questioning whether there's any of this that we can shave back to let it fall to that free cash. We've got some contract negotiations and so forth that it seems to me that may behoove us to have money available to try to, settle some of these contracts that are outstanding. Take 100,000 off the table, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that we could certainly look at that now that we have these numbers. This is the first time that we've ever seen a report like this, which I think is a good one for the decision makers to have, because it gives us an idea as to what potentially we could, as you use the terminology, shave back some money if we need it for other purposes in FY 13. Now, I can tell you that we were hoping to carry enough money for cruisers, which obviously this number is not going to suffice. there are other commitments, capital commitments out there that we need to also consider. The antenna at the fire station needs to be replaced. Those are very large items that the Finance Committee decided that they wanted to fund these positions for highway and use some of that money in that area of the budget, which I agreed to because, you know, it logical, it makes sense, but, you know, in hindsight, now you're looking at a crystal ball, you're seeing everything in front of you, and you've got 131,129 potentially in free cash, close to 200 if you add what I'm going to talk about in the second sheet. Is that going to be enough? Whatever it is, we're going to have to make it work, and we're going to have to prioritize our capital needs so that we're working within the budget.
Kevin?
Has the accountant, and I know they just closed the books, and I know it's probably premature, but have they come up with an undesignated or unrestricted revenue figure yet, to your knowledge?
Not to my unrestricted.
Yeah, so in other words, I guess the point being, and I think you pointed it out, this right now is a moving target.
Yes.
And I think if the accountant in closing the books, you know, she's got a lot of things that you pointed out, that whether, for instance, if Chapter 90 was received in a timely manner, if not, DOR won't certify. If looking at it in its totality, you know, in the next month or so, if she can work up what a projected, you know, free cash figure would be based on the closeout, and I think it'd be a better thing. I'm looking at this is only one piece of the puzzle.
That's correct.
It's an important piece, but as you pointed out, it's only one piece of the puzzle. And I think before, you know, we start to focus on what is the final number, I think it's trying to like trying to nail a bowl of Jell-O to the wall right now.
It is.
Until we have some finite understanding. So I think, at least from my standpoint, I think it'd be a lot easier, you know, if the accountant, and it's not going to happen immediately, but certainly sometime before October 1st can work up, you know, what a potential free cash number would look like, realizing that it has to be certified, so we can have a clearer idea on when we move forward. I mean, obviously, we do have, when we set a special town meeting in October, we have to be mindful, as we all remember at the annual, we had a couple of articles, one in particular was for the fire department, to put the ambulance on the enterprise fund.
That's correct. We need to do that.
We need to do that in order to get the tax rate set. And I think in concert with that, it's going to be very important that we get free cash certified walking into town meeting, because there will be priorities that were put off consciously.
Yep.
For the fall. So maybe if, and I realize she's new, but perhaps if that could be as part of her
Oh, she'll do that.
charge
That'll
to...
absolutely be
to,
done.
She seems eminently qualified, in my opinion, and I'm sure she can, if she hasn't already, I'm sure she's working.
Well, she's working on that as we speak. Like I said before, we had some problems getting to the final number in the closeout because we had wire transfers that weren't inputted into the system that date back to April.
Yep.
There were other issues that we needed to straighten out. Those are all straightened out, so we're working on that piece. Just my final note is the revenue to budget numbers, which are important as well. This provides you with a clear understanding as to exactly where we are in relationship to, and this should be budget FY12, not FY11. And that budget FY12 to what we actually brought in for revenue, if you look to the percentage column over to the far right, you'll see as far as motor vehicle excise, we're 1.799, almost 1.8% above what we had projected. We try to be as conservative as we can in relationship to revenue projections and try to live within those numbers. You could see that with respect to real estate and personal property, we're at 103%, almost 104%. The revenue piece that really showed a significant increase were the miscellaneous fees and revenue fees to the town, the zoning board, filing fees, police reports. We estimated, I think, $92,771 came in at 106,211.25, which represents approximately 114, almost 115% increase in revenue. One piece that I want to bring your attention to in the next column, dealing with plumbing, building, we have 173,250 in building fees. Of that 173,000, 52,000 of that is the Cape Cod lumber permit. I wanted you to be aware of that. And there's more money, more revenue that's going to come in that's associated with that number for FY '13. So I think we're going to see another healthy number in FY '13 for the building department. As you can see, we have about 38,800 in liquor license revenue, common vic license revenue, auto dealership license revenue, and so forth. And so that number, when we look at the 299, 852, 53 number, if you flip to the next page, we actually collected 326, 155. So we're doing, I think, very well in that fee area. Another area that has increased, obviously, is the Board of Health number, and some of her fee areas have increased. Not significantly, but it's a good, healthy number. Our investment numbers were off, as you could see. We predicted investment numbers of 92,000. We received investment numbers of 71, so that's like a 76.92%. And so there are some areas of the budget that obviously need to be adjusted further. We're going to look at doing that probably at the fall town meeting. The number I want to talk about is local estimated receipt revenue. We have a surplus of 72,263, which can be committed to the free cash number at the fall town meeting, which would increase that number to almost $200,000.
Is that in this report?
I know, but
I'm on the second page. I'm sorry.
my second page is real estate tax.
Yeah.
I think we're missing some.
Yeah, I think we're missing a page.
Really?
Yeah. How many pages is the document? 5?
No. Yeah.
Yeah, we only have 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's my mistake. I will make copies. I'll just go over this.
Okay.
So we're looking at miscellaneous investment earnings that are down, which we expect because the economy is down, the interest rates are down. If you look at the 72,263.11 number, which I will give to you at the close of the meeting, you will see that we have an additional amount of local estimated receipt revenue that we can commit to free cash. And that number will increase our 113 number, 133 number to close to 200,000. The next area of local estimated receipts that I want to talk about deal with personal property taxes and how much we've collected in personal property and real estate taxes. We are collecting approximately 99.79% of what is issued in property tax. That is very good. That's a very good number. Many communities are at 98%, some are at 97%. So we're doing fairly well with respect to our real estate property taxes. That number constitutes about $37 million of our budget. And so our total revenues are about $40,508,000, which equates out to just about even in relationship to what we had projected. I will give you that second page. You have the third page?
Yeah, the third page,
99%.
real estate taxes, it seems.
That's a pretty good number. Now, the next that I would like to talk about are sewer revenues and golf revenues. Our revenue surplus with respect to sewer enterprise, and this number is not accurate until we close it out with respect to some additional revenue that is not accounted for here that would offset the deficit. Right now, we're projecting $85,000 deficit in sewer. That number, we still have not verified all of the revenue piece, and we're working on that as we speak. And then the last revenue number that I'd like to talk about is golf revenue. We're looking at a $33,417 surplus, which is high considering the past. We have user charges of approximately $27,000. We're projecting, we had revenue of close to 60. And so we had 43,000 in rental and 17,550 in house rental, for a total of 60,750. We budgeted in FY12, not 11, obviously, the 27,333. The difference between that equates out to the $33,000 surplus. So we're pretty healthy from a revenue projection perspective, and there was a request to look at revenue in relationship to expenditures for July. That, I think it's a little early. We would like to look at revenues just before town meeting, I think, and have close to 3 months to be able to chart what we expect to receive for revenues for the fiscal year. Our largest commitment is motor vehicle excise, and that won't come out until February of next year. So it'll be very difficult for us to make any kind of assessment as to if we're going to be on target with respect to revenues.
Mike?
Good, Mike.
We had spoken a few months ago about, we had put an article in the annual town meeting in regards to putting money aside to fund unfunded liabilities, especially in the term of
Health insurance.
Health insurance, which I think is $40 million. And I don't know exactly if, I think you would mention to me that maybe if we suggested to the board, we might put a plan together or something to put some monies into that account. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the intent of the account when we put it there.
That's correct.
So I don't know if going forward, if the fall town meeting would be something to start to address that problem, because no doubt we have some revenues here. But I think we should keep in mind that we have that unfunded liability in front of us, and that was the intent of that article. So I just want to bring that forward, because I do think it's important that we start to save some money, going forward.
I agree wholeheartedly with that approach.
So I don't know what we would do, or obviously that's my idea, but it's obviously a board decision, but if you might bring us back your thoughts and, at another meeting of how we might start to address that, or what would be the best way to address it.
Okay.
Just to follow up on Mr. Fernie's point, do we have any idea what our unfunded liabilities are?
Yes, it's on our website. I think our unfunded liability stands at about $43 million.
Consisting of what?
It's an actuarial study that was completed, I think. It has to be done every 3 years. So we just finished one. That's on the website. I can't tell you all of the variables that go into it, but I can tell you that the major variable is the retirees who are retired currently, for which there is no funding. And as we go along, there is going to be a number of employees that are going to retire that if we don't begin to put that money aside, it's just going to pile up.
For health?
For health and
Okay.
Life insurance or whatever other benefits that are unfunded and are a liability to the
How about
town.
things like comp time, sick leave buyback?
None of that
Vacation
qualifies.
carryover?
None of that qualifies.
But do we have a handle on that unfunded liability?
We
Took a look at all
don't
the
at
employees?
this point. It is something that I want to work on, because I think it's important for us to understand what that unfunded liability is, because that's a number, although much smaller than the 43 million, it is still a number that we fund on an ongoing basis through the budget. If we had a way to fund that outside of the budget, it would give me some flexibility in when I could bring people on and replace those who are retiring versus having to wait and fund that money through the operating budget, which is what we do currently. So if somebody leaves, right now, the vacation buyback, sick leave buyback, whatever the case may be, we fund it through an article at town meeting, and we've done that traditionally in the past. But somebody who leaves and has, 5 weeks vacation that we have to pay out, then, I don't, other than waiting 5 weeks and pay that person 5 weeks and hire somebody 8 weeks from now, from that point forward, there's nothing in the budget to fund those types of liabilities. There's no requirement to do it, but I do think that it makes sense to have some money set aside for that purpose.
Kevin?
I think in going in line with agreeing with what Mike and Tom are saying, that the health and retiree unfunded liability going forward, they call it OPEB now. And in order, I think it would probably behoove us to take a look at, as much as we do on anything that comes in free cash, a percentage of that is designated to capital projects. I think we should establish a policy down the line before the next budget season or before even the special town meeting, is to dedicate a percentage of the free cash that would go for OPEB costs, because that's going to be an important factor when we go out to bond. And if you don't start addressing those particular costs of the unfunded liability, they're going to hold that against you, and eventually down the line, they'll probably look at that in totality in terms of certifying your free cash. So I think to build the foundation, we should definitively have a policy statement that a percentage of any free cash should be dedicated to that vein.
Similar
And I
to
think
what
John
we do now.
You can look at the numbers and come back with some sort of recommendation, realistic,
Well,
obviously,
I will.
that would address all of that.
Very good. You have anything else under your town manager report? That's it?
Sweet and simple.
Anything else? Anybody have anything else?
Can I just ask a question on, probably not related to this, but.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll wait till we get to public comment, more technical.
Public comment is next on the,
Just a question on the charter. We spoke a couple times about that and wanted to make some changes. I don't know the exact date, but Sean might know, but it seems to me that it's getting reasonably close, so we might want to notify the moderator about starting the planning, because I think, Dory, you correct me, it was 2004.
FY14.
Yeah.
2004.
10 years from.
Yeah, 2004, we accepted
Yep.
the current changes, so it took, I told the people in the committee it was only 3 or 4 meetings, and actually it was like 40 or 50, but that was okay. But it did take some time to allow the
Yeah.
department heads and the committees and commissions to come in and share their ideas. Now,
We were
so
just talking about that.
we might want to notify Sean, just a
Yeah, we'll send a letter to him reminding him.
Yep.
thank you. That's all.
That's it? That's it? Do we have a motion to
Yeah.
adjourn?
I'll make that motion. Game's on.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
It's a record. It's better than